Wasn't that long ago, I was sitting around a kitchen table with a cup of coffee with my neighbors, as neighbors do, and the conversation came up about a controversy at one of our local cemeteries. Not that many miles from where I live is an old country cemetery, and the discussion centered around the fact that there were some internees buried there, two family members who had been interned in Spirit Lake in Quebec. And I had never heard of that before. I had no idea what they were talking about. So I went out and got my hands on Cordan's book, In the Shadow of the Rockies. And that was a real epiphany for me. I was shocked that history happened, but I think I was even more shocked that I didn't know about it. Because here, just a stone's throw away from where I was living, were two of those people buried. And so that was the beginning of a bit of a journey for me. So I phoned some friends and read everything I could. And so that's what inspired this monument. But it's been so good for me on so many levels because, I didn't understand that our Western national parks that we so revere were built by forced labor, that could happen here. And I tried to imagine the lives of those poor immigrants and what they and their families endured. And over 8,000 were interned, and another 80,000 had many of their rights stripped and had to report regularly to the authorities. And I reflected on that, and it really touched me. And little lights started going off in my head, being a young boy and hearing Bob and Guido talk about people having to change their names to get jobs, and being told the stories of if they spoke Ukrainian in school, they would get whipped. And even in my own case, I remember growing up and asking Mom and Dad, why didn't you teach us to speak Ukrainian? I was always so embarrassed that I couldn't speak Ukrainian. And Dad would just say, we didn't want you to stand out. We didn't want you to be different. And so when I look back at that, I started to understand, we're almost 3 generations later in 100 years, and still those ripples are running through the fabric of our community. And so for me, it's been a good reminder about my heritage, about being proud of who I am, where we came from. And so, it's kind of inspired me, I think, to become more active within my own community. Those little threads that hold us together are disappearing fast, and I think it's important for the next generation and those after us that we continue to share our stories and celebrate the things that we have to be proud of. Yeah, when I first heard about this and was trying to wrap my brain around it, I even looked up the word xenophobia, because I had seen it in many places and I didn't understand what it was. And then it became all too apparent, hearing the stories from my grandparents about the discrimination and the prejudices and the names and all the hardships that they endured because of it. And I also think of Boris shared a story about one of the survivors when she was interviewed, and they were asking her what she would do if they got a payout. And she says, money, I don't want money, I want memory. And I think that's a really important piece for us, is that this not be allowed to just vanish forever.